think about desegregation versus integration. They are not the same. To desegregate doesn't mean to integrate. And unfortunately, desegregation is what has happened in most cases, and not integration. No.
I always wondered when the Supreme Court decision was first handed out, who was going to implement it? Because the proof in the pudding was it's one thing to get the agreement, but the other one is who's going to carry it out, and that seemed to me a lot more difficult than simply handing down the decision.
And even though we grew up during the days of Jim Crow and segregation, we never felt denied, and we never felt less than, because excellence was always reinforced. And I remember my mother, once there was something, some discussion regarding race and race relations, and my mother said, "You're going to find people of every race that you like better than others, and some that you like less than." So we never label people by race.
Going back to the country club, I had sort of a friendly relationship with one of the members' sons. So one day he came flying into the locker room and said, you know, he was admonishing me, how could I do this? I was such a nice guy. So, and I was bewildered at first what the hell he was talking about. Well, it turned out that the local newspaper had published the names of the students who had been approved to transfer, partly to get them all, everybody to quit, I'm sure.
There was a time when all the kids used to leave to go to Central High from our house. They'd put all the kids in a station wagon, long green station wagon. They'd have a Jeep with a machine gun mount in the front and Jeep with a machine gun mount in the back. And they go to school like this. From our house, my house, the house I lived in. I'm looking at, you know what I mean? I'm living this.
And the first time that I really thought about being black was when I went to a store in Little Rock with my mother. And it was Blast, which was a pretty big department store. And I wanted to, it was, you know, a hot day in Little Rock, and I needed a drink of water. And I saw this water fountain, and I stopped to drink out of it. Well, it turns out it was the whites only water fountain. I thought my imagery as a 6-year-old was that this hand came out of the sky. It seemed admonished me for drinking out of that water fountain, and I couldn't do that and couldn't do this, and I didn't understand. But I knew enough to know that this was something I wasn't supposed to do. At 6 years old was my first encounter with segregated life. Now, because my mother didn't drive, occasionally we took the bus. Blacks boarded the bus in the back, whites in the front. If it was a day in which you had some white person who would get on the bus, and if there were no seats for them, the rule was that if you were black, you had to get up and give your seat.
But you don't miss what you don't know. And growing up during that time, we knew what the rules were. And I guess that's why when Ernest started Central, everybody was shocked at the reaction, because Little Rock had never been a violent place. There were the black neighborhoods, and there were the other neighborhoods. And as I mentioned, when we were coming here, there were the hotels, and we couldn't go to the hotels because the laws prohibited that, nor could we go to the restaurants. But that in no way diminished anything that we felt about ourselves, about our families, or about our neighborhoods.
A couple of school districts, not as large as Little Rock, but in northwest Arkansas, that after the Supreme Court decision was handed down, they quietly went and integrated the school, mainly because they couldn't, in most of these small rural places, they couldn't afford 2 school districts.
Changing laws doesn't automatically change hearts and minds of people. It doesn't create openness or welcoming ways. Desegregation can actually make things worse for a time as we all move toward actual integration. In spite of the challenges, though, Triopia reaffirmed the resilience fostered by her family and her community. She said, "This experience didn't change how we felt about ourselves." Not every family, not every community is as equipped to support that kind of resilience. We have to learn that.
Things were desegregated because of legal challenges and economic realities. This moved Little Rock in the direction of equality, but integrating requires not only equality, but equity, a step beyond. Equality isn't equity. It's important to clarify the difference between the two. Equality fits into legal, economic ways of looking at issues. Equity looks beyond the numbers to what is just and best for all. Equity isn't just fairness. It's acting strategically for what's best for everyone and for us as a whole. It's seeing us as a whole, but not seeing us as all the same. Equality still leaves deficits, but some of us have a hard time even seeing inequity. Our blindness is our privilege.